I'm speaking off the record. It's hard to portray, for instance, the president in a unbiased light when the words that are coming out of his mouth are apologetic toward white supremacists. I feel like Trump is just a sort of an idiot in a lot of ways, like just an oblivious idiot. Who's horrible. I think maybe possibly worse than Trump. He's extremely religious. Extremely religious. I think one of the things that maybe journalists were thinking about is like, oh, if we write about him, about how insanely crazy he is and ludicrous his policies are, then maybe people will read it and be like, oh wow, maybe we should vote for him. I'm speaking off the record.
These are the most dishonest people. They've got a couple of reporters in that newspaper who are so bad.
It's hard to portray the president in a unbiased light when the words that are coming out of his mouth are apologetic toward white supremacists. I feel like Trump is a sort of an idiot who's horrible. He's extremely religious. I'm speaking off the record.
Who here would like us to release undercover videos inside their holy grail, the New York Times? Fake news, New York Times edition. Our American Pravda investigation into the old gray lady continues. This time, our insider hails from the New York Times' London headquarters. She is an online editor who picks the top stories for the paper's subscriber base. Her name, Desiree Hsu. And as we dig deeper, we get closer to who these people really are and what they believe in.
So I monitor breaking news, write alerts, and then also essentially my job right now is to curate the front pages.
Ms. Hsu was eager to tell our journalist about the internal culture of the New York Times.
When I click on the New York Times, the whole page was Trump.
When? Now?
No, I mean during the election. It was
part of it was because it was sensational. So people, but also I think one of the things that maybe journalists were thinking about is like, oh, if we write about him, about how insanely crazy he is and ludicrous his policies are, then maybe people will read it and be like, oh wow, maybe we should vote for him.
As Hsu describes, the New York Times crossed the line from journalism to advocacy in the reporting of candidate Trump. Framing coverage to influence the election is a scary revelation. The Times Ethical Handbook clearly states, quote, journalists have no place on the playing fields of politics. Staff members are entitled to vote, but they must do nothing that might raise questions about their professional neutrality or that of the Times, unquote.
Our main stories are supposed to be objective. It's very difficult in this day and age to do that.
Why?
Because when you have something like the Charlottesville story, it's hard to portray, for instance, the president in a unbiased light when the words that are coming out of his mouth are apologetic toward white supremacists, which is what they were.
Hsu went on to share her own feelings about the president.
I feel like Trump is just a sort of an idiot in a lot of ways, just an oblivious idiot.
Her thoughts on Vice President Mike Pence were striking.
If you impeach him, then Pence becomes the president, like Pence, who's horrible. I think maybe possibly worse than Trump.
Why is that? I don't know much about him.
You think Pence would be worse than Trump?
Yes, I'm speaking off the record.
Why?
Because
he seems like a family guy.
He's extremely religious. Extremely religious. He at one point backed a bill that hinted at conversion therapy for gay people, which is electrocution and stuff like that.
Hsu suggests that Pence's religious faith makes him unfit to lead. With attitudes like that, it's no wonder why many see the Times as biased. And according to Hsu, this unfair reporting goes far beyond the paper's politics. As it turns out, bias is great for the bottom line.
since the election, like, just speaking on, for the New York Times, like, our subscriptions have skyrocketed since, they call it the Trump bump. But the Trump bump.
This wasn't the first time we heard of the so-called Trump bump. Times audience strategy editor Nick Dudick made the exact same point.
I mean, honestly, Trump has driven us more business than anybody else. Anytime he says failing, we get a boost in subscribers.
Really?
Yep, so it kind of works both ways.
The bump is real, abundantly clear by the Times' second quarter financials. Total revenues are up 9% from the same period last year, including a 63% increase in digital subscriptions.
The Times, The Guardian, the BBC, not the Guardian, the BBC, the Washington Post, people who have paywalls up. The main objective is to grab subscribers.
Yeah.
You do that any way that you can.
As print newspapers fade into oblivion, subscriptions are the name of the game, and the New York Times' survival will be determined by the success of its online presence.
You were going into is it about clicks? That kind of stuff, and I think.
Well, that's when you're like you sort of back up. Because part of it is, but also you don't want to be like branding your company as click chasers,
Right.
Everyone has to chase clicks.
Yeah, that's like it's so ignoble,
The New York Times has got, to me it's a newspaper.
It is a newspaper.
But nowadays it feels like it's a clickbait.
I mean, you're not wrong. I would love to be able to speak my mind completely about. If I ever leave the Times, I'll go back to you guys and tell you this kind of thing. But there's and this is what I was trying to say is the last couple of years it's changed for the better.
For the better. Oh, it's changed for the bad. You mean because of Trump or?
I think the business model itself is just, there's so much panic about what to do that, what else is a company supposed to do?
Shu's points are actually quite reasonable. It's called the news business for a reason. Journalism is a free market industry, and the news is only worth what people are willing to pay. But we wonder, has the New York Times compromised its journalism for the sake of profits? Is the vaunted Times pandering to its readers and potential subscribers? Is truth and honesty the victim?
The New York Times is not, it's widely understood to be liberal, but American newspapers are not supposed to claim a bias. They're supposed to be objective.
But the New York Times is not right.
I'm not saying that they're not. I'm saying it's widely understood to be left-leaning.
The New York Times used to have a rock-solid reputation to report unbiased truth. But according to Shu, it now wants to report the truth as accepted by the left. She insists that bias is what subscribers want. And the Times wants subscribers to be happy.
That's the conundrum, is that a business model in this time is built on what the readers want. You have to give, it's not so much that you have to give the readers what they want. You have to be respectful of the readers' desires, or what interests readers. It's not so much that you're tailoring your content toward them, but one of the things we're doing at the Times now is making sure that we're aware of our audience. That doesn't mean that we're going to condescend to them, but it also doesn't mean that we're going to be holier than thou and try to tell them what they should or should not be consuming. What you do is that you give them the news, and then you see where the pieces fall. You see what people are interested in, and people are interested in politics right now. And a lot of the readers, some of them are liberal. A lot of them are liberal. So I think what they want to know is they want to know about Trump, and they want to be informed. So when the next go-round happens, they feel they're sufficiently informed to either vote one way or the other.
Isn't that just feeding the monster what he wants to eat rather than giving him any?
But what else are you supposed to do?
Shu seems resigned to this new reality at the New York Times. It appears that money is just too important for those pulling the strings.
90% of your stuff is Trump, man.
It is. It is. And trust me, you're not the only one that said that. Like, a lot of us feel that same.
I think it's too much to hate Trump.
I do think a lot of it's too much.
I mean,
However, there's layers of people like I'm here, and then I have about 3 layers above me of people whose opinion matters more than mine.
What do you mean?
Like the editors, that's it. So when you have a very high-ranking editor tell you that this is what it's going to be, there's not much you can do.
We wonder if one of those high-ranking editors Shu refers to might be executive editor Dean Baquet. He commented on the video we released last week about audience strategy editor Nick Dudick.
He caught a kid, a guy in his 20s, who, to give you an idea, they portray him as a very powerful figure in the New York Times. I'd never met him.
When did he start?
He started 6 months ago. And he has a very entry-level job at the New York Times.
Mr. Baquet, Desiree Shu is a senior editor on your paper. What do you have to say about her statements that your paper has an editorial agenda?
I think one of the things that maybe journalists were thinking about is like, oh, if we write about him, about how insanely crazy he is and ludicrous his policies are, then maybe people will read it and be like, oh wow, we should vote for him.
In another intriguing development, perhaps in response to our reporting about bias at the New York Times, the paper updated their social media guidelines for their employees late last week. The key point: in social media posts, our journalists must not express partisan opinions, promote political views, endorse candidates, make offensive comments, or do anything that undercuts the Times' journalistic reputation. It's almost like they're saying, you can have your liberal bias, just don't let anyone know about it. If there's one thing we learned from our American Pravda investigation, it's that the mainstream media is not what it used to be. Objectivity takes a backseat to a political agenda, journalism takes a backseat to fake news, and the truth takes a backseat to money. Things aren't going to change on their own. People aren't going to change their behavior unless they're exposed, unless we shine a light on it. And we have people in the field operating day and night, and they've only just exposed the tip of the iceberg. Just wait until we expose the rest of it. Usually at the end of these videos, I make a request for financial support. Today, I'm going to ask for something slightly different. As you can see, we're working on some of the most powerful, sensitive investigations we have ever done. We've been able to do this because of people on the inside who are cooperating with us. If you're inside a corrupt mainstream media organization, a fake news organization, a Silicon Valley titan, or maybe you're one of those people inside the deep state, we want you to reach out to us. Now, your security is our biggest concern. We will protect you. I will personally go to jail to protect your identity. But if you're an insider, we want you to send us a tip at veritastips@protonmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.